Well, the interesting part is I was only in BNI for 5 months before I took on the role as area director. So I really didn't know much about BNI at all. And even as I became managing over the region at the time, I had so much to learn. So it was a real balance, like you said, a balancing act of trying to learning BNI just period, and how to leverage, you know, being a member and working throughout the region. I think what surprised me the most in the beginning, and again, this was a big learning curve for me. So I came in and had a lot of people say, "Well, it used to be this way, it used to be that way," and I was like, I don't even know what that means.
Welcome to the Perfect 100, the podcast for BNI members who want to maximize their membership, deepen their impact, and grow their business through intentional networking. I'm your host, Tammy Zurak, a CliftonStrengths coach, longtime BNI leader, and one of the few members worldwide to maintain a perfect Power of One score. Each week, we'll explore the habits, mindsets, and everyday strategies of BNI members who are turning their membership into momentum. Hello and welcome back to the Perfect 100. I'm excited to bring you today's guest who has served or is serving as an area director for CORE. If you don't know what CORE means, that's company-owned regions, where she helps support and grow chapters. She also represents her family's commercial construction business within her own chapter, so she's a member also. And beyond those professional roles, I've had the privilege of working with her personally on CliftonStrengths, and I'm also proud to call her a friend. So please join me in welcoming Nikki Gates to the show. Hey, Nikki, how are you?
Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. It's my pleasure. All right, let's get everybody up to date on what you do in your business, in your chapter. So go ahead and give us your commercial.
Oh, wonderful. Well, again, my name is Nikki Gates, and I hold the seat of commercial contractor for my chapter. And it's Double J Construction is the company. We do mostly excavating and streetscapes, parks and rec. We look for my role in the chapter or role for the company in the chapter is to continue to find and connect with people that have projects that they are putting out to bid so that we can bid those projects, again, because it's commercial based. So, and also to find resources for subcontractors and connections to help do the jobs for the business. So, again, it's commercial construction for Double J Construction.
Awesome. So you are representing your company, your family's company, and you also serve as an area director. Talk to me about how many chapters are in your area, and you're in the Dayton area because I don't think we said that. So
Yes, that's correct.
how many
Yes.
chapters are in that area?
We have 14 chapters and approximately 300 members in the Dayton region. And it spans over, it's probably about a 45-mile radius of Dayton. So we have some northern and southern areas as well. But I love the region. I grew up in that area. So it's just been very rewarding to work with the different people of that area as well.
And for those that might be listening internationally, that's Dayton, Ohio. And
Yes,
since
Dayton, Ohio.
we didn't say that, and I'm originally
No.
an Ohio girl, although from up north in Ohio. But I have been to Dayton several times for various reasons.
Right.
So what's it like balancing both hats? Being, you're representing the construction business, and then you're also an area director. How, as a member and a leader? So what have you learned from doing both things?
Well, the interesting part is I was only in BNI for 5 months before I took on the role as area director. So I really didn't know much about BNI at all. I came from 23 years as an educator and then finally left education during COVID and started to work with my family's company. I was an art teacher, so like going into marketing was kind of a nice next step. Plus, I was an administrator, so kind of helpful with that leadership as well. And going into it, like I said, I really had no concept of what was going on. And even as I became, managing over the region at the time, I had so much to learn. So it was a real balance, like you said, a balancing act of trying to learning BNI just period, and how to leverage, you know, being a member and working throughout the region. But I really do love it because one of my favorite things, I do think it's so important to be a member also while you're being a leader, in the region because it just keeps you on the ground level. I mean, I've built so many relationships and I just feel like you're in the midst of everybody and it really helps you stay um, grounded with those relationships and to know what's going on and what the members need and would like. So it really has been a great balance. And plus it's helped me even broaden the company's name, for my family's company, broaden their name throughout the region before where people just we just didn't have any exposure. Like people just didn't know. And we found a lot more people to work with and connect with. So that's been really nice.
Yeah, I love that. I've often said in the past when I've worked for various companies and corporate level, kinds of opportunities, and I've
Right.
always come in at the sales level and then moved into management.
Yes.
And occasionally, people would get hired from outside the company to be in management over a team of people who, were doing the work
Right.
essentially.
Right.
And I always thought that that was a strange move because it's so much harder to take over a team of people that are doing the work and you haven't done.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, I even felt that way in education because I taught in the school district, and of course, they one of the questions they always ask is, "How are you going to be an administrator in the same district you taught?" And I'm like, "Well, who better? Because we know the people, we know the clientele, we know the families, we know, and I think it's the same, like in what you were talking about, or in this concept as well, because if nobody wants to be led by someone who has no idea what the area or the people need or want,
Need. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
exactly,
I still
exactly.
get phone calls. I just had one earlier today where
Mhm.
somebody was trying to access something in some system that they're like, "I'm lost." And I knew if I called you because you've been around for, a long time, you would be able to help me figure this out, and although it was somewhat challenging, I did help them figure it
Right, right,
out.
right, yeah. So it's nice to
So,
have those relationships because people
yes.
do, want to reach out and you can
Yes.
help,
Yeah, for
Yeah, for
sure.
sure.
What leadership strengths do you think that someone I know the person that tapped you on the shoulder to become the area manager, but what leadership strengths do you think that person saw in you to want to push you to the next level?
You know, That's always been a hard one for me to answer, and even in the education world, I never saw myself moving up as an administrator, and my mentor did see that, and same in this scenario as well. I don't know if I no, I don't wanna say underestimate, but just I just don't see myself as having like, "Oh, I'm this, great leader," or whatever, but I do feel like what is important to me is building relationships with people because I feel like when you have relationships with people and you have authentic and honest relationships with people, people want to work with you, people want to learn from you, and people want to be they listen to you and they will grow, from things that you might help them with. So maybe just, having those relationships. I mean, I think those that's the biggest thing. And and maybe just my willingness. I mean, I'm not afraid to like present or talk in front of people. That might be helpful as well.
Yeah.
But again, I guess I don't wouldn't peg myself as that. It's just kind of been, you know,
Yeah. Well, your Clifton Strengths pegged you as that, right?
I know. I know. That's always interesting to see.
Yeah, it's funny how those things work is,
Mhm.
and one of the reasons why I asked the question, might have something to do with that, but yeah, I think that each person's own unique set of things creates the environment by which they might move to something else, right? You kind of just inherently have something that someone else sees as a benefit. And,
Right.
definitely with you, relationship building was an asset to bringing you forward to that role. So,
Right.
um,
Right.
and I think that you're a humble person, so you're not going to say, that's a strength for you necessarily, but that's definitely something just knowing you as I do, I know that that's something that I think you bring your teaching experience forward into
Right.
this, which
Right.
is, an asset to everyone around you that you don't assume, like you said, you didn't know you'd only been in for a short period of time when you moved into that role. So you didn't
Right.
know even how to be a full-fledged member, let alone into that role, but you're
Right.
willing to say that, right?
Right. 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 Yeah, and I don't need to pretend that I know everything because, like, who really does, right? I
Right.
mean, we're all learning on a regular basis, but yeah, like, and I mean, even as a teacher, and no matter where, if someone, asks for your help and you don't know the answer, you're like, well, I don't know, but we'll figure it out, So being resourceful and being willing to, dig into it and work with them rather than try to pretend, that's not
Right.
helpful for anybody, right?
Yeah. So, with that unique experience that you have now running a territory, what has surprised you most about how chapters actually grow and thrive?
Um, I think I think what surprised me the most in the beginning, and again, this was a big learning curve for me. So I came in and had a lot of people say, "Well, it used to be this way, it used to be that way," and I was like, I don't even know what that means because this is just what I know," and shifting that culture, and I think that we've. I am proud of this, that I do think we have shifted the culture in the Miami Valley region to where we're not just like chapters in silos, and they truly do embody the giver's gain mentality because we have so many chapters that just help each other, um and kind of learning that and growing through that has been, I think, really uh beneficial for the region and for the chapters. And I to that point, I think it was just they were pretty stagnant, when I came in.
Yeah.
And so to really dig in and say, like, these are the things that we should be doing. This is why are we not connecting? Why are we not doing things together? And once we kind of learned that, then people learned from each other, other than just outside of their little region. And I think that's been helpful in growth and people seeing like the value and wanting to be part of the region.
So, what do you think shifted there? What I mean, I know it was you, but what do you think shifted in terms of why they decided to start working together where they hadn't before? Because I think that's probably a big thing. Culture. We talk about culture a lot, and the culture has shifted over the years, always will. Just going to keep changing. But some chapters have the age. They've been around for 20 some years, and some or newer, some in between. So what do you think has been what was the catalyst to get them to see like we actually could not only work with our, change things here in our chapter, but work with other chapters?
I really do think once a lot of them realized that they weren't the only chapter in the area, I don't know that they had really connected much at all. And we just started doing regional things together, and nothing that was like super extravagant. It might have been a social, or um, we've done like little business expos, or we've done dinners together, to celebrate different things. And I think once they saw all of that, it really, like, opened up this whole new, like, I can learn from all these people, and these are great connections, and, it just
Yeah.
really opened up a new world that they realized their little island wasn't it was a lot bigger. They had a
Yeah.
lot more to access than just having that small, and again, we really do have good people that I think just enjoy being around each other, and a lot of us are just friends,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's really cool too.
Yeah, well, I love that also because there, talk about that. I've done, I don't know how many episodes where I've said, working the other area, working your whole area, having you have opportunity to have connections all across your region or all across, you're in Dayton and I'm in Memphis. So
Right.
that means, we
Yeah.
can be regional, we can be, the US, we can
Right.
be the whole country, we can be
Right.
everywhere, we can be the whole world because
Right.
BNI is everywhere. Just
Mhm.
depends on what kind of business. Obviously, not everybody's gonna do business outside those areas, but why
Right.
wouldn't you want a bigger if you said 300 and something people in your area, why wouldn't you want them all on your connection list, right?
Right, exactly, exactly. And because people find different jobs through people, like connecting through people. And of course, if you have a category that's not as common, you've now just taken your chapter of 25 and opened it up to a region of 300, and I think that was the thing that was missed a lot too, which I encourage a lot in the region, for those that are in those a little bit more obscure, unique
Yeah,
categories.
the
So,
unicorns,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes, the unicorns, yes.
Yeah, we actually had that scenario in my chapter where someone worked for one company and it was a construction related company and they had to downsize and that person ended up getting hired by one of the people in our chapter, another, business owner in our chapter because they were because they had shown themselves to be a reliable person within the chapter that got them the opportunity to show up as a potential, and got hired at the other company. So you
Absolutely.
you just
Yeah.
never know, so very cool.
Right.
What brought you to BNI originally?
Well, the position, when I was brought into the company, into Double J, that was part of the biggest thing. Like they just did not have exposure, really. I'll never forget. I went to, and this was before I think I was part of BNI, but I went to an event that was at a local college in Dayton, and nobody knew. I had no idea. Never heard of Double J Construction. Never heard of anything. And I was floored because we were doing the project right outside of their door. We were
Oh, no.
doing the college entryway project and streetscape, and I'm like, how has nobody? They just didn't. We just didn't have that exposure. The website wasn't up to date. There was no social media presence. There was no, people just didn't know. And so that's kind of what I was brought in to do. And then I met at a just at a social, I met someone that is currently in my chapter. He's actually been in for 27 years, and he invited me to come. I was okay, why not? I didn't know what it was, and he's probably one of the biggest connectors in the whole region, and just a fabulous networker, and really embodies the giver's game. But I mean, I had no idea, so I went, and the kind of the rest is history. But I didn't know it existed, to be honest. I mean, when you're in education, you don't have, I always
Right,
say we didn't know what the real world was like outside of the
yeah.
education walls.
Well, I think it's a joke, when I was in the core part of things, I think it
Mhm.
was the joke, we were the best kept secret, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, that's how I made it there.
Okay, and did you so that them not having prior to you going into that role and getting into BNI, them not having the exposure, was that hurting the business, do you think? Or has it improved since then?
I think so, and actually, like, still, I find people that don't realize we do certain things, and when I'm out and about, they're still surprised, but I definitely think we've had more connections of people interested, in, sending bids to us, or when they have a project they'll send the bids to us because they realize that we actually do those things. And like I said, the other piece of that too is I've met other people that they can use as subcontractors or resources for other parts of the business, not just subcontracting, but which has been very helpful as well.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
you're the upstream in the pond of when if you're in a chapter and you think about who gives you referrals, or do you get referrals more often, or do you send them off? Are you receiving or giving? Ideally, it would be both, but oftentimes people in your line of work are kind of more the upstream where you're feeding everybody else. Is that
Yes,
true?
I would say I probably give more, because I mean, it is a niche, we're not a handyman, we're not doing residential, projects or whatever. So, and we have to also bid them. So we don't just like get something handed to us. We actually have to bid it and be the low bid, and so forth. So, and again, the connections and the opportunities are connected with me, but a lot of it, yeah, I would say I probably give more referrals.
Yeah.
So,
So we
yeah.
like to have people like you in our chapters.
Right?
At least the
Yeah,
trades team, I'm sure, is very happy to have you around, if they're getting the subcontracting jobs, and I
right.
think that oftentimes we forget about that when we're trying to look at our own context sphere in our chapter
Uh-huh,
and say,
uh-huh.
"Okay, who is the person that's always gonna feed me?" And are they in the room? And if they're
Right,
not in the room, those are the people we need to be looking for, because that upstream sort of thought of their client is always gonna be coming to me next,
right.
and hopefully we have the opportunity to give them back business because they might come to us first and they really need to see someone like you first, but
Right.
that if you haven't thought about that, and if you're listening, then that's a good place to look and say, who comes before, where do my clients go before me, and where do my clients go after me? Because those are the people, if they're not already in your chapter, you need to have, and
Right. Oh, yeah, that's
looking
very
for.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good point. Mhm.
When you think about the early days when you joined BNI, what do you think was the hardest thing to get? Like and then how did you move past that?
Everything just seemed overwhelming when I first started. I think just honestly, like, understanding the power of one in the traffic lights, and not just for myself, but for everybody, and as, director, helping everybody understand the importance of them. So I think that was probably the most challenging. And because like I said, I didn't know what any of that was. The one thing I do kind of pride myself on is that I'm resourceful, so I'll figure it out. Like if I don't know, I'll figure it out. And
Right.
I did a whole lot of figuring stuff out in the beginning. And some of it probably seemed silly questions that I asked, but I mean,
How else are you gonna know?
right, right. So that was probably the most challenging is understanding how all of that worked and what the benefit was, and then translating that to everybody so everybody else understood the benefit and how, how that would help add value and help um them become more successful as a member.
Yeah, I love that because obviously I show both of those things here.
Mhm. Right.
And for the very same reason,
Yes.
because I found that if people don't, if they, I think probably by now I want to feel a little bit better about saying that most people know what the power of one is. I think that now, because in several years ago you wouldn't even get it directly. It used to be sent
Right.
to someone else, and you hope that that person sent it out to you. It was
Right.
kind of a
Writing
struggle,
paper slips and yeah.
yes, and in the early
Right.
days, it was even, we had to kind of format an Excel spreadsheet and try to figure out how to drop the numbers in, and, it was like this nightmare, and
Yeah.
so it was very, cumbersome, I guess, would be the best way to put that, to use it, but now, you get it in your inbox every
Right.
month, so
Right.
it's you should have an awareness of it, and I show it here, and we're gonna get into that in a minute because I have a few more
Mhm.
questions before we get there, but,
Sure.
I show it here because it for me is it's it's I always like to say it's not something that's punitive, it's not, if you're not green, oh, you're a bad person, but it is a scorecard for how you are or aren't
Right.
utilizing the system that you paid
Right.
for.
Exactly.
So, if you're not in the green, then you're leaving money on the table, and maybe that's why they used a green color, because it's like money, right?
Money. Yeah. Yep.
I know it's like a
Right.
traffic light, but I'm gonna say green is for money.
Sure,
So,
sure.
whenever I sat down religiously as a coach, I sit down with people, and that's the first thing. If I'm doing a one-to-one, I want to see where they are, because,
Right.
and maybe I can learn something from them if they're
Right.
doing things well. And that's why I like the Palms report too, because the Palms report tells a different story. So it kind of shares information in a different way, and we'll talk about it. We'll get there. So, but before that, tell me, because you are in the commercial construction seat, it's an industry where referrals look a little bit different than maybe retail kind of businesses or coaching, like what I do. So, what have you, or how have you learned how to communicate what your opportunities, what you need, what you're looking for, in a way that translates so that you get them?
Well, like, as far you mean, like, for business or referrals? Like,
Yeah,
when
for
I'm
when you're in
doing
your
my
chapter. Yeah, like,
okay.
what have you found to be successful to generate, because that's a try, I feel like it's trial and error. You try this, you try that, and see what happens if people resonate with things, and, like, my feature presentation's coming up next week, so I was sitting down doing my, trying to figure out what am I gonna put in this, because you say the same sets of things, you don't you I try to shift it every week, so I'm not saying exactly the same thing, but overall, I feel like in a year and a half, I've said it all at some
Right,
point, but, the
right.
feature presentation's a little bit different. So have you found a way, because I feel like your seat is a little bit more unique maybe than others, to communicate how to get to those right jobs for you? Join the Art Academy in Memphis. Master the skills needed to create stunning, realistic oil paintings. With expert instruction, you'll refine your craft. Enroll today at artacademyofmemphis.com.
yes, I think, and again, this kind of goes back to the exposure piece, but one of the things, because the company works within the same area and the chapter's in, there were often times where I would say, has anyone seen or has anyone been to this park or this, like we did a riverfront like park and splash pad and so forth. And a lot of them said, oh, yeah, I've been there. And I said, well, we just finished that project. So if you know of any other communities that are doing something similar, please, let me know. Because again, we have to bid the jobs, but if we don't know they're coming up, we don't know, right?
Right.
And some of the jobs are even different where it is a little bit more. I mean, it's still commercial, but it might be not necessarily like a government bid where it's like a neighborhood wants to put a park in, and they can be a little bit more specific and just say, no, we'd like you to bid this because we know you do a nice job with this. So again, having those connections of this is what we do, and if you can connect us to someone, a community that might be doing that. So that has been one way, because I think the visual piece of that, when they know or they've been there, they've experienced it,
Right.
helps them kind of connect. Like, oh, well, I know this community is getting ready to do the same thing. So
Yes.
now, at other times, though, I'm even way more specific. Like recently I needed someone to do like drone photography. So I said, please connect me with someone that does drone photography. And of course, right there in the chapter, they were like, I
Right.
do. Okay. So, so I'll be
Yes.
specific if I need a resource.
Right.
But as far as like jobs, it's
Yeah.
just more giving them the idea of what we do.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that's a struggle for a lot of people is, well, in your case, needing resources is easy. I think, somebody
Right.
raised their hand in my chapter a couple weeks ago and asked for something someone did.
Yes.
And they didn't realize that person did it, so that's
Right.
always
Right.
funny. It's like, okay, we need to do more one-to-ones.
Right.
Or the person they do the one-to-ones with need to be more specific. Actually, they need to be using their gains profile, and because maybe they missed that sharing that with that person instead of, so that could have been a missed opportunity had she not raised her hand and said that.
Right.
But
Right.
trying to figure out the root of, I like that if you give a specific, like this is the kind of thing you've been in it, you've seen it,
Right.
trying to get ahead of it is a great
Right.
way to do that. And
Yes. Yeah.
as a director, you kind of get to look behind the curtain of multiple chapters. So what's a practice that you notice that separates strong chapters from ones that are maybe struggling a little bit?
Absolutely. Like goal setting and realistic goal setting. Um, I believe that my strongest chapters are very aware of, like, this is what the attrition looks like. This is how many visitors or, how many people we need to add to our chapter this year. And also being very strategic and inviting, but always inviting.
Okay.
So the ones that don't have visitors and just get they're going to get stagnant, and they're going to,
Die
get
out.
smaller, and they're right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the stronger ones I feel like are very intentional and proactive. Like they get to it beforehand, before they're realizing like, oh, now what do we do?
Yeah, yeah, I
Hmm.
like that. So they kind of have a vision and
Yes.
then they set what they want to do and then they walk towards accomplishing that.
Yes.
That sounds like good
Absolutely.
business.
Yeah, I think so. In general, that would be
In
good. Yeah.
general,
Good
yes.
business. Yeah. Hmm.
As a business coach, I'm gonna say that's a good way to do things.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Execute when the execution is the hard part, kind of coming up with the vision, is
Right.
generally for a chapter is not significantly hard because you usually we want to be bigger. But like the chapter I'm in is we've moved already once, and we're outgrowing the space that we moved into only not that long ago. Sometime,
Okay.
we weren't in there the whole year,
Right.
so far, and we're already kind of at capacity because we always have anywhere from 5 to 10 visitors a week, and so that
That's
sucks up
wonderful.
the extra seats that we have. But
Right. Right.
and then guess what? People join. It's so weird.
That's crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
So we're like, we're the new. It's October for if you're listening to this later. It's October 3rd, and so we've just rolled over into a new year
Leadership.
for a new fiscal
Yeah.
year, and the new leadership team's like, gosh, I think we're gonna have to move again, aren't we?
Mhm.
And like, yes,
Right.
and
Right.
that's
Yes.
gonna be on you guys to help support that. So
Yes, you could do that, and it's a good problem. It's a good problem to
yes,
have, but
yes, it
yeah,
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
fun. So if you think about, do you have any great referral stories that since you've been a member, or even if you have ones from inside your region that you've heard that are just, an amazing example of this is why I do BNI? Does anything come to mind?
Hmm. Oh, wow. There's I feel like there's so many. Um, I actually, uh, just recently spoke with a gentleman who is new. It's his first year, and, he called me because he's trying to put one of his, like, colleague or, workers in another chapter, and I was just so tickled because I never met him in person yet. Yeah, I mean, I may have seen him, like, I've been to the chapter, but I hadn't met him directly, and, he said, "I just this is just great. Like, I just started a year ago, and I already have" I can't remember, he, like, had passed 88 referrals and told me that and he's a handyman, right? He had made over $105,000 in thank you for closed business in
Wow.
1 year. And
Wow.
that to me, I was like, what a huge and I understand there's some categories or some companies that, make like one item is gonna be, a big item like that. But that's not, a handyman.
Right.
And I was just like, I was just so thrilled to see like his investment how much it multiplied for his ROI in that 1 year, and he was just so tickled, like, and then I was at that chapter, last week, and he came right up and was like, "I just wanted to meet you in person, I spoke with you," and I was like, "Yeah, I remember," so anyway, I love hearing those type of stories, but, yeah, I mean, we've had a lot like that and just a lot of connecting region like, chapter to chapter. I think probably my first real for myself like, for my family's company, this is when I very first started. I heard my dad and my brother discussing, their accountant, and, like, "We need to look around, this isn't going well." And I said, "Oh, there's someone, in my chapter, maybe you can talk to him." And they did, and that's who they use now, but that first year saved them $20,000,
Mm,
right? So it may not have been, like, revenue per se, but it
right.
was off of our the company's bottom line, which is also, a very good, referral, if you will.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, I mean, we've had a lot, but those are just 2 that come to mind.
Yeah. I love the, when you feel like you get to be a piece of someone else's success, right?
Yeah,
And I think
right.
that's why we all do this is that giver's gain.
Mhm.
It's not just a saying; it's a feeling, and
Right,
it's a opportunity when you can. And that's why I like being a business coach is I can help. Kind of lift the veil sometimes for people who can't see the way forward. But
right,
when for people that didn't know about BNI, it's kind of the same thing is suddenly they've been presented with this whole thing that, wow, these people actually want to talk to me and they actually want to support me and they actually want to help me grow. And then they do.
right, right,
So
yeah.
it's pretty
It's
cool.
definitely I love hearing those stories. It's my favorite for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at because I we talked about it for a minute, the power of one. Let's roll into that. So you have a total score of 70 in the green. You have so that gives you 20 points on your well, you have 20 points on your attendance.
Mhm.
You which is green. You have 10 points in your referrals given, which is red. You have 0 points in your visitors per week, which is
Yes.
gray.
No, that's
You
terrible.
you might be busy doing other things like running the whole area.
Right.
Your one-to-ones per week are 20 in the green, and your CEUs are also 20 in the green. So, how do you feel about that as a member?
Well, uh, my competitive nature and the fact that I should be at a 100, I'm, like, embarrassed, like, I'm at a 70. Um, but I know I know the holes, and, I mean, there are times where I have a lot of referrals, where I'm giving out like, currently, we have a lot going on in the region, so I'm, like, using all the people for different things, which is great. Visitors, I have a harder time with that. And I feel like I connect people a lot and
Yes.
register people a lot to visit
Yes.
other chapters,
Okay.
but I don't know if I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
if it doesn't go in under,
Yeah,
I
well, if they're
it,
going to a different chapter, they're not unfortunately rolling under your own
right.
chapter, so and so we'll give you the I'm definitely gonna give you a pass on
Okay, yeah, because I
'cause
do that all the time. Like, I'm
yes,
always, like, connecting
yes.
people different
Yes,
places, but
yes,
it
I
doesn't
have
help.
done your job, so I know what
Mhm.
it's like, and we also
Right.
I just heard said a minute ago that we just went and turned over the new leaf for October for new leadership teams, so in the last 90 days, I'm certain because as a success coach, I've also been very busy doing, getting new leadership teams appointed and trained and understanding all the things and, making sure all the outgoing people had all the things they needed to do done. So, yeah, to be green and I may have said this before, but as a president, when I was president of my other chapter, my original chapter, I was always in the green for the most part. I think I had 1 week or maybe 1 month, I'm sorry, rather, where I was yellow, but because I had some stuff going on. But the challenge is just staying green, right? Is
Right,
when you're
right.
trying to do your business and then the business of BNI, and then, we all have but everybody has that. So being green is is the thing, right? So if you're green, as I said earlier, you're maximizing your opportunities. You don't have to be 100. Very few people are. I got to peek at the rest of your region when you sent me yours, and I don't think I saw any hundreds in there. So I'm going to challenge your region people when you send this out to them: is who wants to be 100? Um,
Yeah.
you got
And
one?
we do have some, maybe
Okay,
not, like, on
this
this
one,
report,
yeah,
but, no, and I kind of, like, I always equate it back to education,
yes,
right? And so when you said, "How does it feel to be 70?" I'm like, "That's terrible. That's like a C minus. That's not good,"
yes,
I had actually had that conversation with one of my this was a while ago with one of my biggest chapters, and they were top on the traffic lights, but they were still, like, at a 60,
oh,
right? And I was
okay,
like, "Okay, like, yeah, like, you can pride yourself on the fact that you're number 1 in the region, but
yes,
you're still at a D, and that's
yes,
not very good,"
yes. The
And I think that kinda woke him up a little bit, but
Yeah, that I've
yeah.
heard it said the best of the worst is not something to celebrate,
Right, right. So, yeah, so I always wanna, elevate, but I
Yes,
do like special recognition in the region, and I have my principals list, so that's everybody that gets 90 and above, and then I
okay.
have my honor roll, which is like 70 and above,
That's
so
funny.
we do celebrate that, but yeah,
Yes,
I
I
know.
love
I'm
that
a
that has an
nerd,
education twist from your previous life.
of course.
All right, and let's look at your PALMS report also, and then we'll move on. So this is 22 weeks of activity. So you had 0 absences. Your referrals given is 12. Referrals given inside is 12. Referrals given outside is 4. Referrals received inside is 0. Referrals received outside is 7. Visitors is 1. One-to-ones 41. Thank you for closed business, 42,000. I think that says $847 and 72 CEUs. So the things that I have things that stood out to me. Anything that you would like to comment on your Pulse report? What have you learned since you talked about that was something that you struggled with at the beginning? What have you learned and looking at your own or thought about that meant something to you?
Well, I still obviously need to, continue to work on the referral portion of it, like giving referrals, because I definitely want to continue to give the referrals and build that part of the, you know, traffic light or power of one points up.
Hmm.
But um, I do like the fact that I feel like I have a lot of thank you for closed business, which
Yes.
means we're utilizing a lot of people within the region,
Yes.
for different as different resources. So that I'm pretty proud of. And my year or my lifetime is I think it's closer to like 140,000, which
Okay.
is also pretty decent, for thank you for closed business. So those things I am proud of, and I'm happy that's where that is.
Yeah. Well, and the thing you had one big one in there is 39,500 that you gave. So I don't know if that was one profession that you gave it to, or I know if you're handing out to subs, if that was one sub or a whole bunch of them rolled together. But I
Might have
think
been the
that
accountant. I don't know.
yeah.
Right?
Exactly, yeah, so who
Mhm.
knows, but I always think that I always am interested in those bigger ones because they catch your eye, and
Right.
that's something that meant something to someone. If I got
Right.
business for almost $40,000, I would be pretty happy about that. So,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
again, I'm gonna give you a little leeway in terms of you're over everybody trying to help everybody maximize what they're up to. So, that sometimes is at the expense of your own thing. And I think that extra responsibility of running a business and also being a part of running BNI and running a business,
Yeah.
there's this, you can only do so many things, but what I did notice was that you had a lot of CEUs. So,
Yeah.
which, if we go into your Clifton strengths, your number one is harmony. So let's see if I can read this. I'm going to have to put it over here so I can see it because it's a little small on my screen. Your harmony is you look for consensus. You don't enjoy conflict. Rather, you seek areas of agreement. Developer, you recognize and cultivate, there's your number two. You recognize and cultivate the potential in others. You spot the signs of each small improvement and derive satisfaction from evidence of progress. Number three is consistency. You're keenly aware of the need to treat people the same. You crave stable routines and clear rules and procedures that everyone can follow. Number four is a ranger. You can organize, but also have a flexibility that complements this ability. You like to determine how all of the pieces and resources can be arranged for maximum productivity. And your number five is relator. You enjoy close relationships with others. You find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. And we've worked together on this. So you actually did your full 34. So if you're watching on the screen, you can see, I'll just read the rest for those that are only listening. So six is empathy. Seven is activator, eight is positivity, nine is responsibility, and 10 is learner. And then I won't talk about the rest right now. We can come back to some of the other ones, but learner. So does that tie into, which is why I wanted to roll with the Palms report? You had a lot of CEUs. Is that feeding your learner, or is that just by virtue of the fact that we've had to do a lot of training because of the term?
I would say probably a little bit of both, but I always want to learn new ways to do things. If it can be, more efficient, or there's a new platform out, or there's a new, way to do something. I want to know that. Like that's why I said I want to be resourceful where I can dig in and learn about different things. So I'm I feel like there's so much more that I need to learn about, I still like my mind is like blown by AI, but I'm trying to embrace it and to see how it can be of a benefit, in technology and doing different things like BNI Plus, or how to implement different strategies within, chapters or within training and so forth. So again, I do like to learn that myself because I mean, obviously feel better teaching it
Right.
if I know how to do it, right?
Yes.
So that's why, I continue to stay on top of things as far as learning goes.
Okay, and I don't know if you'll remember because it's been a little while since you got your report, but do you remember how you felt when you first received it? Was it kind of was it surprising to you, or did it feel like it nailed you?
Well, my CliftonStrengths report.
Yes.
Oh, no, I felt like it nailed me. Yeah, I felt pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
if you
could
had
see
to
that.
find the person, well, one person I think thought, I'm not really sure. I coached somebody recently in a team event where
Hmm.
they weren't sure. It's funny because everybody around them
Hmm.
saw the thing, and because
Right.
there were 5 or 6 people on the team, and she was like, "I'm not really sure this is me," and, I think it was positivity, and, and everybody around her was just like, "Really? You don't
Yeah.
know that's you?"
Right. Right. The only one, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the only one that, well, the first one really, it was harmony, right? And I mean, I don't love conflict, like, I don't, but at the same time, I would prefer to have honest conversations with people and, like, hold people accountable as the my biggest thing is I want to be able to say, "Here are the expectations," right? And then if those expectations aren't met, here's where we have to, I'm gonna hold them accountable. And again, I had to do this a lot with education because I dealt with like kids and discipline and so forth. And adults are just big kids, so kind of the same. But that's yeah. And again, nobody loves confrontation, but I feel like it is a necessary piece, and it's also like a learning piece for a lot of us too, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Well, and when I read your report, it said chances are good you adopted a practical outlook on life during childhood. So, did you feel like, and that for harmony, do you feel like it said you figured out how to avoid rocking the boat? And is that something that rang true to you?
probably so. I mean, I do think that there. I mean, I probably would err on the side of like sometimes like a people pleaser, like I want to do well. I want
Right.
to make people proud,
Yeah.
and sometimes maybe to a fault where I feel like I overextend myself a little bit and I have to work on boundaries a little bit with some of that. So yeah, I could see that potentially, yes. But
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of these things start in childhood, I did a coaching session with someone as I was preparing for my future presentation. I was thinking about this person that I coached who he thought one of his strengths was actually a downfall until we did the coaching session. Yeah, it was really like it kind of blew my mind a little bit that he was like and it was from childhood is he had high ideation and he was talking about how that was a detriment because he said people don't really always want to hear about all the ideas I have. And
oh,
and I was like, okay, well, I'm a high idea person myself. So
right.
and I think some of that is as a child, I was very inquisitive, but I remember my parents saying, "Wow, you ask a lot of questions."
Hmm.
Plays
Yeah.
out now, and I think, it's like I'm
Right.
asking questions now, so it all pays off. But
Yeah.
sometimes that childhood stuff, someone, or it doesn't have to be parents, it can be teachers, it can be anybody, can be an influence to that's too much of that thing that you have, because maybe it's getting in the way, but left to develop, in a positive way, it can turn
Right.
into something amazing. So
Right.
I was curious
Definitely.
if that
Definitely.
rang any bells for you. Um, you also
Yeah. No,
have
I was
to
just. Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I was also a gymnast my whole life growing up. So it was very like regimen and very, again, like perfectionist, like you're trying to do everything perfect and please everybody. And, so that probably could have came into play as well.
Yeah, okay. So you've
Yeah.
got harmony, developer, consistency, arranger, and relator. Those are all relational and stabilizing themes. How do you see these things shaping the way you build trust and get things done?
Well, I mean, certainly, and I said it earlier on, but building the relationships with people, but also the consistency, like if you're going to stay consistent and stay focused and stay like keep the bigger picture as the higher goal, and keep consistent because of that. I think that people see that and people, and they trust you that you are doing the right things or you're, not going to steer them in the wrong direction. You're going to be honest and so I think that helps with the trust. But yeah, consistency is huge, but also you can be consistent but not be relatable. Like people aren't going to follow you just because you're consistent. They're going
Right.
to if you're relatable, they're going to be like, "Oh, okay. Well, we know."
Yeah.
Um
Well, you've got one, two, three, four, five relationship building themes in your top 10. So that is largely where you focus, right?
right.
And many of them are ones that allow people to feel comfortable with, that you see them, I think would be the best way you hear
Okay.
them,
Right. Right.
you make space for them is a good way to put that, maybe. Do you feel like that has helped you as a area director in kind of dealing with situations that pop up, because there seem to be, always something going on when you deal with people, there's always something.
Staying ahead in a world driven by technology is key. At Wisdom Integrators, we don't just solve problems, we create opportunities. Wisdom Integrators, connecting your world, solving your problems.
I think so, and I think that I probably learned that early on through education, because again, when you're teaching kids are going to learn from you. Um, if you have that relatability, right? They're not going to like learn from you otherwise. But the other thing I think is important, even like when dealing with adults, in the either in the workplace or in as a director or whatever, if as long as you can just hear them, listen to them, and it doesn't mean you're going to change the outcome, but you can also talk to them, listen to them, talk to them with respect, and empathy, authenticity or whatever, but still, like, I understand, I might maybe understand where you're coming from, but this is the process and this is what I have to look out for,
Right.
and for the bigger picture. So I think that at least is more of a respectable conversation to have with people. And nobody wants to not get their way, or nobody wants to be have difficult conversations or have confrontation or whatever. But if you can do it in a respectful manner where you both feel like they feel like they're being heard, but you stay, like you said, consistent with the outcome or with the bigger picture in mind, for the most part, I feel like that is a better conversation. It's more understood, yeah.
Well, and I had a call earlier from somebody that's on the membership committee, and I was thinking about how that works together. My chapter, we did many of my chapter people have taken the assessment, so we can see. And I did a session for everyone that had to kind of see how that all plays out across the
Right.
chapter, because we have a good mix of all the different things. And when you look at
Mhm.
membership committee, I think it's really great to have somebody like you, and also your strengths are in many parts the end of my chart.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
and somebody like me, I think
Mhm.
where you need that balance of, okay, but because the people that I'm kind of the hard charging, move forward, let's
Mhm.
buy the book, let's go,
Right.
kind of person, in your let's make sure we see people, hear people, address all the things. And I love having people like you on my team, because then I'm not creating a mess.
Oh,
There's someone there
yeah.
for me
Yeah.
that's like,
Yeah.
it's going to be okay. Let's go have a conversation, and it's not that I can't do those things. It's just your natural innate ability to do them. You don't have to think, okay, I've got to make sure everybody's feeling good, and that I'm being consistent across all the people,
Right.
that everyone gets an equal shake. I can do all of those things. It's just not my natural state at all times,
Yeah.
right? And so I
Yeah.
love having people like you on my team, and making sure, especially on a membership committee,
Right.
to have all those different kinds of, there's 34 different things represented on the assessment. So if you've got a good blend, then you can, when those conflicts arise, you have a good set of balanced
Right.
things that people are considering, because some people are like off with their head,
Yeah.
and that's not
I mean,
always me.
sometimes I wish I had a little bit of that, or where I just like didn't care, like
Right.
sometimes I
Yes.
wish I had that, but I don't. I've learned that I just don't.
Yeah, it's just
So,
not you. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well, but that's what makes the world go round, right? Is having that. And that's why I love being a strengths coach for teams, is, having that when you get a group of people together. Our chapters are a microcosm of what a business does, right? We run like a business, we have kind of, if you set the goals, if you operate that way, if you
Right.
operate the framework of BNI the way it's meant to be operated, you're operating
Right.
it like a business. So, it's so
Right.
much better if you have a great group of people that are willing to kind of use their diversity of thoughts and, strengths and all the things to bring, better outcomes to all the
Right.
things that happen in a chapter. So,
And more balanced, like perspective. Yeah.
yeah, for
Exactly.
sure. If you, in looking at your strengths list, do you feel like, or what do you feel like is the most underutilized strength that you have?
Oh,
And how might you lean on it more?
can we put my list back up?
Yeah,
Did she do that? I
absolutely.
forget.
Yeah,
I had it
Leslie.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, Leslie, will you pull up the report?
Okay. Let me.
So there you go.
Of the top 10,
Mhm.
I would probably say, which is funny because it's number 2, developer.
Okay.
Like you said, you were an idea person more so. I wish that I was. Like, I feel like I don't why don't I come up with the concepts or so yeah, I think maybe that one, and maybe I
Okay.
do more than I think I do, but
Yeah.
I feel like I wish that I could be more, I have a little bit more of like my own
Right.
processes or
Okay.
own, yeah.
Well, your ideation's sort of towards the bottom, but you're using your skill sets at the top so let's look at developer since you said that. So your developer, just to refresh your memory, is you cultivate potential in others. So you look for, and I know you've coached, so you've done bodybuilding, or is that what the specifics? I know you did. I can't remember exactly which area you focused in.
Yeah, I did. Well, I've done bodybuilding and CrossFit and
CrossFit and
all
all
kinds
that.
of competitions, but I was a fitness instructor and
And you
trainer for a
worked with
while.
other
Mhm.
people in that, right?
Right.
So,
Yes, yes.
developer is recognizing and cultivating potential in others.
Okay.
You spot signs of small improvement and drive satisfaction from evidence of progress. So, when you think about it that way, were you able to, just to give you, be nice the same way, which, I think you're doing that already. But when you think about that from a bodybuilding or CrossFit, when you're coaching someone in that regard, how would you lean into that development piece, would you say?
I think I mean, for sure with that, I mean, I'm probably better at it than I initially would have thought, but I do think that I can see, like you said, see the potential in people when they
Mhm.
don't,
Right.
and I can encourage them and celebrate small wins. So, just kind of keeping them kind of keeping them moving in the right direction and celebrating that progress because I mean, I've said this with fitness or with education or with BNI or with whatever. You're not gonna change the whole world in a minute. Like you can't take on, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this, and this, and expect that it's all gonna be, um, you know, it's gonna happen. I'm like, no, you take those small steps and realize the progress, as you go, and then compare it to where you came from. So yeah, I think that would be the case in any type of like coaching or
So how do you
business
get somebody
student.
to do something that they don't necessarily think they can? How does that work for you?
um I think
Like, I could be
partially.
I probably have, at least according to my husband, I have a body frame to be able to build, he's often said, 'cause he used to be a power lifter, he's often said to me, I have the right build to be a fitness kind of person, competitor and whatever, now I'm a little older. That was many years ago when he was saying those kind of things, but what how do you think you might spark, if I was 20 years younger, how might you spark me to move that forward? I mean, I could do it now too, but
Well, I think just first of all, like wanting to, like, do you have any interest in it? Like, do
Mhm.
you think like, oh, this would be cool to do, but I can't do it? I'd be like, oh, no, absolutely you can do it. And just, I mean, I probably, for lack of a better term, could be a pretty big like cheerleader for people,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
encouraging them, but also kind of showing them like what their maybe pain point is or what their obstacle is and how to get around that obstacle. Because a lot of people think they want to do things, but they're too old or they can't do this or they can't do that. And why do they? I mean, if they don't want to do it, I'm not going to force
Yeah.
anybody
No,
to
let's
do
say I
anything.
really wanna do it.
Right, right. Okay. Well, then we figure out how best to do it for you and find a way around those obstacles because they're probably just in your head, to be honest.
Right. Yeah.
So you get kind of past that. And then once that person sees past that obstacle, like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right, then then
Yeah.
you build upon that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of
So
what I would say.
you're expressing your ideation through your developer. Do you see
Okay.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
you're
don't see it. That's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I just don't
yeah,
see
and
it.
that's usually the case is you where it's not the go-to start off kind of way you come at it with, I might just be rattling off, a whole bunch of different things. Have you tried this? What about that? How about this? You're coming at it from if a developer's kind of looking at that potential, so and then you're going to figure out how we can work together because you have high relationship skills. How you're going to support me in moving that needle forward? And I'm certain in that process, there's going to be some ideas that pop up that will help me move those obstacles out of the way, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I love that you pointed to that one because you do it, and this is a perfect example of why I love to coach people is that,
Yeah.
and the same as the guy that I mentioned, like he was thinking he didn't realize, that's my number one thing is he was looking at it completely the opposite is that's my, I always thought that was bad. And I just like crazy to me, but because somebody got in his head and said that to him, that stuck and whoever it was. And, but we all have the ability, we just express them in different ways. So, yeah, so I love that. Looking across, kind of staying on that, not sure if we can get things accomplished sort of idea. When you look across your region, what consistent challenge do you see business owners struggling with?
Probably finding the best, um, method or systems, to reach their goals, and sometimes it's even not knowing what their goals are, and then or, like, having goals, but not having a path to get there. So, I would say that and everybody's in a different place. Like, some people are, spending X amount of money trying to market, and they think
It's a
and they're not
cure-all,
getting anything out of it,
right?
or they have this idea, of I want to be a, six-figure business by X, Y, and Z, but they have no plan to get there. And just that piece of it, I think would be finding where their struggle is and then trying to help guide them or connect them with the right people to help them reach their potential.
Yeah. So have you figured out a way to support people in that way? Because that's kind of that's one of the things you do as an educator, whether, you're educating in BNI or educating if, when you were teaching people how to do fitness, et cetera. What would be, and I know you're a goal setter. So that's part of your strengths, just, kind of seeing all the things in your report and just knowing what I'm looking at on a piece of paper that's
Mhm.
sitting right here in front of me. Um,
Right.
so of your strengths. So do you have a tip that you might give somebody to, if they aren't getting where they want to go, to maybe take a little bit of that struggle away from them?
First, I would probably connect them with someone that is successful in their pain point, maybe as like a mentor, or to just like learn from, or if it's, if it is like putting systems in place or, a resource, I guess, if you will. But also just even kind of talking with them and helping, like trying to understand like what is their struggle, and and if I have any even suggestions on how to make small steps towards that, I would obviously help someone with that. Because again, I feel like some people, they just, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like, you have these goals and you have this big picture, but it's like overwhelming. Like, how do I get there?
Yes.
And I oftentimes have to remind myself, like, no, it's like one day at a time, one step at a time, like break it down, but and that could be with many things, whether it's fitness or work or
Right.
education, whatever. So probably having that type of conversation with them. But again, a lot of times pairing them with someone that is good at that, and that might offer them a different, perspective, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, love that too. Yeah, and
Mhm.
my number one strength is strategy. So I,
Mm,
love to solve those puzzles for people when they can't see it. That's a strategy is not something um you're born with it. You can't be
mhm,
taught it. It's just you either
right.
have good strategy skills or you don't, because it's just like seeing things that other people can't see. So I love it when, that idea of putting different people together,
Mhm,
that
mhm,
don't have, and it's kind of like strengths, like what we talked about earlier, is if you're a good counterpart to me because I don't do, your top things are my bottom things and vice
right.
versa, then, let's work together on whatever we're trying to do. And I think that BNI affords us that too, that because you don't have to necessarily hire somebody, you might want to hire me as a coach to help you, but in BNI itself, you can come and sit and have a conversation with somebody that is open to having that conversation. I
Right.
was I was talking to a lady yesterday who, she came to me through my husband. She's a new, well, she's not new business owner, but she's a very she's, I don't want to say failure to launch, because she's got her business started, but she's not really where she is wanting to, she's not actively in her business, I guess is the best way to put
Okay.
that. And she
Yeah.
gave me a lot of different, kind of things that I think I need to do this, and I think I need to do this, and I think I need to do this. And I'm like, look, we all have to do all those things. When you're running your own business as a solopreneur, every one
Right.
of those things has to happen. It doesn't mean it has to be you.
Right. Yeah.
But I have a whole network of people that can support you in all of those things. And I was thinking to myself, even, if she decides she wants to work with me, is even because I have those relationships where I'm not strong with, say, accounting, and, things like that, is I know people that are open to at least having the conversation around, yes, you need, here's what I would recommend. And, eventually they can hire them, because she's not in a position to hire
Right.
everybody. Right. But you start that relationship, and that's what we do here. Right. Is
Right.
we open the door to have those conversations where people can be supported. So,
Yeah,
and I think that
absolutely.
all of us would take that phone call and, have that short conversation about, yes, I can, here's some short-term things you can do. And then when you're ready, come and talk
Right.
to me about the bigger things, and we can
Right.
lift the bigger blocks, maybe.
Definitely. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
So when you think about your own routines, what habits have helped you stay grounded as you juggle your family business, BNI leadership? You have a personal life. I know you have a family that is
Yeah.
active. So, what are the habits or routines that have saved you to manage all of those things together?
Oh, it's definitely challenging sometimes, but um definitely working out. That I say that's probably more for my mental clarity than, my physical well I mean, I know it's for both, but that is something that I definitely need to keep as a routine. And I'm also very particular about sleep.
Yes.
My husband gets on my case all the time, but I go to bed early, I wake up early, but I'm very structured in my sleep, and if that gets out of sync, I am probably a hot
Not a
mess
happy
and not
person.
pleasant. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. So those 2 things are, non-negotiables in my world. And the other thing too, and sometimes I don't get enough of this, so I have to really kind of put some boundaries around my time, but I need alone time or quiet time, like, I need recharge time, and if I don't get that, then I'm very worn out and not pleasant also
Yes.
when
Yes.
that occurs, so, yeah.
Well, it's funny you
Um,
say
yeah.
the working out and the sleep thing. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday about both of those things where, well, in the last week or so, I think the working out thing was, so as a lady who worked with the presidents, she served as a, Secret Service, and that was something that actually came up in that conversation. These are the people that are running the whole country. So, what we do every day seems like a lot, but then, if you amp that up to what the president's doing every
Right.
day,
A little
it
bit
might
more.
be a little bit
Yeah,
more,
right.
and the things that she said she saw. She worked with Barack Obama. She worked with, oh, who else did she say? There were 3 or 4 of them that she'd worked with, and she said they all went to the gym, every one of
Oh,
them.
yeah,
So, and, that she said, I don't know about the sleep part, because she said they would be working, they also worked, like, a lot. She'd find
yeah.
them working into the night. And, but the working out piece, they all felt like was their thing to sort of clear their head, and, mental and physical, as you said, kind of fitness, because without that outlet of, I think that endorphins kicking in to help support things, and then just your overall well-being, your healthier body in some cases, maybe not as healthy, but, just doing any of those kinds of things to support yourself seems like a great idea.
Well, and for me, it's like an hour where I'm not distracted, like, I'm not getting text or I don't have my phone on me, it's an hour where I go do
Unplug.
the workout and yeah, and So part of that too is just like investing back in myself. I need
Yes.
that time. So
Yeah, I don't do enough of that, and that's been as I'm getting older kind of situation, both the sleep and I've really been focused on the sleep thing for myself because I wasn't getting enough sleep, and it starts to compound, other things that they show up in different ways, and if you're grumpy and you're not focused because you're not getting enough sleep, the brain benefits from all the healthy, sleep is a healthy thing for your brain to regenerate.
right,
And your body needs to
right.
process all the things that happen that you do during the day that need to, be successful for you to continue moving on.
Yeah, definitely,
So
definitely.
I love that those are your
Yeah.
two things. Um, so the last guest left a question for you. We have yes. She's like, what?
I know.
I mean, you're going to leave one for the next one, but
Oh, okay.
they left this question for you. If you were starting over as a brand new member with the experience you have today, what's the one thing you wish you'd known back then?
I guess I would probably say the fact that there was a much larger network. Yeah, because I mean, I again was the one that, I'm in this chapter. I did not know there were other chapters in the region. I did not know there was chapters all over the world. I had no idea.
Right.
No idea.
Yeah.
And having that larger scope, not even just for, referrals or resources or whatever, but just for like friends,
Right.
or the connections that you can
Yes.
make all over in my life now. I mean, I haven't done any overseas, but the connections I've made just through the United States have been amazing. And I would have had no idea that that was ever the case when I first started, or that that
Yeah.
would be the case.
That's amazing. I think that's probably an under-tapped people don't know how to do that. Like, they don't
Right.
understand. They know they can go to other chapters, but again, from a strategic standpoint, there's a very there you can be very specific in how you set up how you want to grow your business be through a
Right.
network of people that want to help you. So if you don't know what that looks like for yourself, feel free to reach out to me because I can help you.
Right.
For anyone listening.
Yes.
And then last question is, as you think about or imagine the future, what excites you most about, whether the kind of impact you want to have in BNI or your family business or just leadership in general? What gets you excited about what's coming?
I mean, this has probably been the case for me my whole life and in whatever avenue that I'm in, but I do get excited about helping people with their success, like helping people, either whether it's like become a better business person, become a better leader, become a better member, friend, whatever. I enjoy helping people tap into their potential and make progress. So no matter what that looks like I said, in what aspect of life, that's what, and having a broader reach and being able to do that, that excites me.
Awesome. Love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate all your candid feedback and
Well, thank
love
you so much
having
for
you.
having me.
Of
Yeah, it's been
course.
great. I love
Of
this.
course. Thank you. And for you listeners, we're sitting at, or at least as of last night, we were sitting at a whole 83 subscribers. So I'd love to reach, let's start with small goals. I'd love to reach 100, because this is the perfect 100. So maybe this week, if you're listening and you have yet to have subscribed, you can help me get to 100. Just start
Yes.
smaller. I'm really going to 1,000, and I keep saying 1,000, but that seems a little farther off. So let's start with a perfect 100. And that will also potentially be like a referral to me because, you're here listening and you're getting some hopefully good content. So, and don't forget, if you're a BNI member, you get a CEU credit because this will have been an hour of listening for you if you got this far. So thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time on The Perfect 100. Thanks for listening to The Perfect 100. If today's episode sparked a new idea or inspired you to show up differently in your chapter, share it with your team and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you're curious about your own CliftonStrengths and how to bring out the best in yourself or your chapter or your business, head to TammyZurak.com to learn more about building your superpowers into everything you do. Keep showing up, keep connecting, and keep building your perfect 100.